My name is Arden, and at 68 years old, I never expected to be sitting alone on a hard bench at a nearly empty train station, abandoned by my son-in-law Tyler. My phone battery showed 5%, my luggage containing my wallet was gone, and I had no money for a ticket home. My own daughter Jessica refused to believe what happened when I finally reached her. The irony? I had millions of dollars in accounts that Tyler never knew existed. If you're watching this from your comfortable home, drop a like and subscribe to hear how I turned this betrayal into a lesson my son-in-law will never forget. Trust me, revenge doesn't always mean destruction. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Cincinnati, where my father taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. True wealth stays quiet. Dad worked at the same manufacturing company for 40 years, wore the same style of work boots until they fell apart, and drove cars until they simply wouldn't run anymore. But he was smarter than anyone knew. Every month, he tucked away portions of his salary into investments that would eventually fund my college education and help me start my own business. When I was 26, with my father's lessons deeply ingrained, I started my own construction company. It wasn't fancy, just 3 employees, including myself, but we focused on quality work and building relationships with clients. Within 5 years, those relationships turned into major contracts, and by my mid-30s, I had expanded to 30 employees and projects across 3 states. During this time, I met Elaine at a friend's barbecue. She was a kindergarten teacher, with the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. We married a year later, and 2 years after that, our daughter Jessica was born. Those were the happiest years of my life, watching my little girl grow while building my business. Elaine was the perfect partner, supporting my long hours while creating a loving home. When Jessica turned 14, our world collapsed. Elaine was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. Despite every treatment available, we lost her 8 months later. Jessica and I were devastated. I threw myself into being both mother and father while continuing to grow my business to ensure Jessica would always be financially secure. I made sure Jessica had everything she needed for a good life, including paying for her education at the state university where she earned her teaching degree. Like her mother, she chose elementary education and found true joy working with second graders. I couldn't have been prouder. By the time I turned 60, I had quietly built my construction company into a regional powerhouse with over 100 employees and annual revenue in the tens of millions. I maintained a deliberately modest lifestyle, still living in the same 3-bedroom house where Jessica grew up. My wealth was substantial but private, invested in diversified portfolios managed by trusted advisors. I stepped back from daily operations, turning management over to my longtime employees while maintaining ownership. Jessica met Tyler at a colleague's wedding 3 years ago. He worked as a real estate agent for a luxury firm in our city, specializing in high-end properties. Tyler was undeniably charming, with perfect hair, designer clothes, and a way of making everyone feel important when he spoke to them. When Jessica introduced us, I noticed how his eyes wandered across my modest home, assessing its value. Something about his too bright smile and firm handshake made me uneasy, but Jessica was clearly smitten. Their romance moved quickly. Within 9 months, Tyler proposed with a diamond ring that seemed rather large for his stated income. When Jessica asked if I would help with the wedding, I agreed to pay for a modest ceremony. Tyler pushed for an extravagant affair at an exclusive country club, but I held firm. This caused our first real tension, with Tyler suggesting I didn't want my daughter to have the wedding she deserved. Throughout their engagement and early marriage, I maintained my modest lifestyle. My 30-year-old sedan, my simple wardrobe, and my habit of using coupons at the grocery store all became subjects of Tyler's increasingly frequent comments. He'd say things like, "You really should treat yourself, Arden. Can't take it with you. Or don't you want to enjoy life a little?" What Tyler didn't know was that my net worth had grown to over $12 million. I had no intention of flaunting my wealth or changing my values just to impress him. 6 months after the wedding, Jessica and Tyler bought a 5-bedroom house in Oakwood Hills, the most expensive neighborhood in our city. The purchase price was well beyond what a teacher and real estate agent should reasonably afford. When I gently asked Jessica about the financial wisdom of such a large mortgage, she brushed off my concerns, saying Tyler had big commission deals coming through. I began noticing subtle changes in Jessica. She seemed embarrassed by my modest car when I visited. She stopped inviting her school colleagues to their home when I would be present. Tyler had begun a campaign of subtle separation, and I wasn't sure how to counter it without seeming like the bitter old man he was painting me to be. The first major crack in our relationship appeared when Jessica began making excuses about why I couldn't visit their new home. It was always something. They were renovating, they had friends staying over, or Tyler had important clients coming by. What hurt most was how Jessica seemed embarrassed by me, by the values I had raised her with, by the same modest lifestyle that had put her through college without debt. Tyler became increasingly skilled at isolating Jessica from me. Sunday dinners, once a weekly tradition since Elaine passed, became monthly, then quarterly, then rare special occasions. When we did gather, Tyler dominated conversations with stories about wealthy clients, expensive restaurants, and the luxury items they were planning to buy. I missed Jessica's 31st birthday because Tyler had supposedly planned a surprise weekend getaway. I only found out about it the day before when I called to confirm our dinner plans. Later, I discovered from Jessica's friend Susan that there had been no trip, just a small dinner at their home with Tyler's colleagues. Whenever I called Jessica, Tyler seemed to answer her phone more and more frequently. He'd make excuses about why she couldn't talk. She was in the shower, she was napping, she was grading papers. Sometimes days would pass before she returned my calls, and when she did, the conversations felt rushed and superficial. I tried maintaining our relationship through small gestures, dropping off homemade cookies at her school or sending cards with old family photos. Tyler began intercepting these too, once telling me to stop ambushing Jessica at work because it looked unprofessional. About a year into their marriage, Tyler approached me about borrowing $5,000 for an emergency roof repair. Against my better judgment, I wrote him a check. 3 months later, when I asked casually about how the roof was holding up, he looked momentarily confused before recovering and saying it was good as new. When I drove by their house the following week, I saw no evidence of any roof work, but I did notice a brand new luxury car in the driveway. My suspicions about Tyler grew when I ran into my old friend Bill at the hardware store. Bill mentioned seeing Tyler at the Riverbend Casino, apparently losing significant amounts at the poker tables. This was particularly concerning because Tyler had told Jessica he was at a real estate conference that weekend. Through discreet conversations with mutual friends, I learned Tyler had developed quite a reputation at local casinos. He was known for placing large bets and often leaving empty-handed. One friend who worked in banking hinted that Tyler had been applying for loans with multiple institutions. When I tried to express my concerns to Jessica, she became instantly defensive. Tyler works hard for us, Dad. His job is stressful, and he needs to unwind sometimes. Not everyone wants to sit at home clipping coupons every weekend. Her words stung, not because I was ashamed of my frugality, but because I recognized Tyler's voice in them. After nearly 6 months of minimal contact, I received a surprising invitation to Thanksgiving dinner at their home. I arrived with a homemade pumpkin pie and a small gift for Jessica, a bracelet that had belonged to her mother. The evening started pleasantly enough, but as Tyler opened his 3rd bottle of wine, his true feelings emerged. "You know, Arden," he said, swirling expensive Cabernet in a crystal glass, "I've never understood men like you. You work your whole life, pile up money you never enjoy, and for what? So you can leave it all behind when you die? What's the point of success if you live like you're poor?" Jessica sat silently, staring at her plate. I waited for her to defend me, to remind Tyler of how I had supported her through college, through her mother's death, through every important moment of her life. She said nothing. "I built my life around values, not possessions," I replied calmly. "The point isn't how much you have, but who you are." Tyler smirked. "Well, I plan to enjoy every minute and every dollar while I'm alive. No offense, but I don't want to end up alone in a dated house, driving a car older than my wife." Jessica finally spoke, but not in my defense. "Let's change the subject. Who wants coffee with dessert?" I left their house that night with a heaviness in my heart I hadn't felt since Elaine died. My daughter was slipping away, and I wasn't sure how to reach her anymore. Still, I was determined to maintain our connection, no matter how Tyler tried to sever it. The call from my doctor came on a Tuesday morning in early March. Nothing immediately life-threatening, he assured me, but some test results required follow-up appointments. I needed to return home quickly for treatment scheduled for Thursday morning. I called Jessica, hoping she might drive me to the train station Wednesday afternoon. She answered, sounding harried, and explained she had an absolute emergency at school that couldn't be rescheduled. Before I could respond, she said, "But Tyler can take you. He's between showings tomorrow. I'll have him call you to arrange it." Tyler called an hour later, his voice strained with barely concealed annoyance. We arranged for him to pick me up at 2 o'clock the following day, giving me plenty of time to catch the 4 o'clock train home. That evening, I carefully packed my suitcase, including a framed photo of Jessica's mother I had promised to bring, along with several small gifts for my daughter. I added my medication, wallet, phone charger, and the paperback novel I was reading. Everything was neatly organized for a quick departure. Tyler arrived 20 minutes late, honking from the driveway rather than coming to the door. I wheeled my suitcase out, locked up, and approached his gleaming black luxury SUV. He didn't get out to help with my bag, instead popping the trunk with a button on his key fob. I lifted my suitcase in myself, then climbed into the passenger seat. "Thanks for the ride, Tyler." "I appreciate it," I said, trying to start our journey on a positive note. He nodded curtly, eyes fixed on the road. "Jessica said you have a doctor thing?" "Yes, just some follow-up tests. Nothing too serious, but they want to check a few things." Tyler made a non-committal sound and turned up the radio, effectively ending our conversation. For the next 30 minutes, we drove in uncomfortable silence, broken only by his occasional sighs or the ping of text messages on his phone, which he checked at every stoplight. As we approached the outskirts of town, Tyler finally spoke. "No offense, Arden, but it's getting pretty old having to drop everything for these family emergencies. Some of us have actual careers to maintain." I bit back my initial response. "I don't mean to be a burden. It's just this once, and I'm grateful for the help." "That's what everyone says. Just this once. Just this small favor." His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "You have no idea what it's like. The constant expectation that younger people will drop everything to care for the older generation. It's like a second job Jessica and I never signed up for." I sat in stunned silence. In the 3 years since he'd entered our lives, I had asked for exactly 2 favors: help moving a new refrigerator into my house, and now this ride to the train station. Meanwhile, I had helped them with the wedding, given them money for supposed home repairs, and always made myself available when Jessica needed anything. The train station came into view, a small red brick building with a clock tower and a nearly empty parking lot. Tyler pulled up to the passenger drop-off zone, keeping the engine running. "Here we are," he said, glancing at his watch. "You've got about 40 minutes before your train. Could you help me with my bag?" I asked. My shoulder's been acting up. Tyler sighed dramatically. "Sure, fine." He turned off the engine but didn't immediately move. "By the way, I had to cancel a showing to do this. Think you could help cover the gas and maybe the train ticket? Times are tight with the mortgage and all." I was taken aback but reached for my wallet. I handed him $200, more than enough for gas, and my $60 train ticket. "Here you go. Keep the change for your trouble." Tyler's demeanor instantly brightened as he pocketed the cash. "Great, thanks. Let me park properly and I'll bring your bag in." I stepped out of the car, expecting him to follow with my suitcase. Instead, as soon as I closed the passenger door, Tyler accelerated away, my suitcase still in his trunk, containing my wallet, phone charger, and medication. For a moment, I stood frozen in disbelief. Surely he was just parking. But as his black SUV turned the corner and disappeared from view, the terrible truth settled over me. Tyler had no intention of returning. I reached for my phone, only to see the battery at 5%. With my charger and my stolen luggage, I had minutes at most before losing my only means of communication. The station was nearly deserted, with only an elderly couple sitting on a bench across the platform. The last train home would leave in 30 minutes, and I now had no money to buy a ticket. I stood alone, betrayed by my son-in-law, in a way I could never have imagined. As the reality of my situation sank in, so did the complete sense of vulnerability. For the first time in decades, I felt truly helpless. I sank onto a wooden bench, my mind racing to process what had just happened. Had Tyler really just driven off with my belongings, leaving me stranded? The reality was too shocking to immediately accept. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding, or he was looking for parking and would return momentarily. After 15 minutes of scanning the parking lot entrance, hope faded. Tyler wasn't coming back. My phone battery dropped to 3%, and I needed to act quickly. A kind-looking elderly woman sat down nearby, and I swallowed my pride. "Excuse me, ma'am. I hate to bother you, but my son-in-law just drove off with my luggage, and my phone is about to die. Could I possibly use your phone to make a quick call to my daughter?" She looked startled, but handed me her cell phone without hesitation. I dialed Jessica's number from memory, praying she would answer. After 4 rings, her voicemail picked up. My heart sank as I left a message. "Jessica, it's Dad. There's been a problem. Tyler dropped me at the station but left with my suitcase, which has my wallet and phone charger. I have no way to buy a ticket home. Please call me back at this number. It's an emergency." I also sent a text message explaining the situation before my own phone died completely. I thanked the woman and returned her phone, feeling a deep embarrassment I hadn't experienced since childhood. As the minutes ticked by, the station attendant, whose name tag read Frank, noticed me checking the clock repeatedly and approached. "Everything all right, sir? Your train doesn't leave for another 20 minutes. The kindness in his voice broke something in me, and I found myself explaining the entire situation. Frank's expression shifted from concern to outrage as I recounted Tyler's actions. "That's awful," he said, shaking his head. "Let me get you some coffee while we figure this out." Frank brought me a styrofoam cup of coffee and sat beside me. "Listen, I can't just give you a free ticket, company policy, but I know the conductor on the 4 o'clock. I'll explain the situation, and maybe he can make an exception." But as 4 o'clock approached, we received word that the train was delayed due to mechanical issues. It wouldn't arrive until 9 that evening, the last train of the day. My doctor's appointment was early the next morning, and I had no guarantee of even getting on the train without a ticket. "Look," Frank said after considering our options, "my shift ends at 6. If you're still stuck here, I can drive you to a motel about 10 minutes away. At least you'll have a place to sleep tonight, and we can figure out tomorrow when it comes." By 6:30, with no word from Jessica despite multiple attempts to reach her, I found myself in Frank's modest sedan heading to the Pineview Motel. He refused my promises to repay him once I got home, saying simply, "Pay it forward someday." The motel was clean but basic. The manager, upon hearing my situation, recognized my name. "Arden? From Arden Construction? Your company renovated my brother's restaurant 15 years ago. Best work he ever had done. Rooms on the house tonight." Small mercies from strangers when my own family had abandoned me. I borrowed the motel phone to try Jessica again. This time, Tyler answered. "Hello?" His voice was casual, as if nothing had happened. "Tyler, it's Arden. Put Jessica on the phone right now." "Arden, where are you calling from? Jessica's been worried sick. You wandered off at the station, and I looked everywhere for you. I had to leave to pick up Jessica from school because she was having a panic attack about you being missing." The lie was so brazen, so utterly divorced from reality, that for a moment I couldn't respond. "That's not what happened, and you know it. You drove away with my suitcase, containing my wallet and medication. You left me stranded without money for a ticket." "Whoa, that's not what happened at all." Tyler's voice took on a concerned tone that made my blood boil. "You got confused at the station. You told me you were going to the bathroom and would meet me inside. I waited with your suitcase for 20 minutes before I got worried and started looking for you. Put Jessica on the phone. Now." My voice was shaking with anger. I heard muffled voices. Then my daughter came on the line. "Dad, where are you? Are you okay?" "Jessica, listen to me carefully. Tyler abandoned me at the train station. He drove off with my luggage containing my wallet and medication. He left me with no way to get home." There was a long pause. "Dad, That's not what happened. Tyler said you got confused and wandered off. He looked everywhere for you. Jessica, why would I wander off without my luggage or wallet? Think about what you're saying. I don't know, Dad. Maybe you got disoriented. It happens at your age sometimes. Tyler says you've seemed confused lately. He's noticed you repeating stories and forgetting conversations. My heart felt like it had been pierced. My own daughter, believing these outrageous lies over her father's word. Jessica, I am perfectly lucid. Tyler is lying to you. Dad, I think you might need help. Maybe it's time to consider some memory care options. We've been researching some really nice facilities. The betrayal was complete. Not only had Tyler abandoned me, but he had poisoned my daughter against me, making her believe I was losing my mental faculties. Jessica, I'm perfectly fine. I'm at the Pineview Motel because your husband stole my luggage and left me stranded. See, this doesn't make sense, Dad. Why would Tyler do that? It doesn't benefit him in any way. Her voice was patronizing, as if explaining something to one of her second graders. Ask him what he did with the $200 I gave him for gas and my train ticket. What? Dad, Tyler said you didn't give him any money. Of course he did. Jessica, please, you've known me your entire life. You've known Tyler for 3 years. Who do you think is telling the truth? There was a long silence. Then Jessica's voice, cold and distant. I think you need help, Dad. We'll talk about this when you're thinking more clearly. The line went dead. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, phone in hand, feeling more alone than I had since Elaine died. My own daughter thought I was mentally incompetent, all because of Tyler's manipulations. The pain of this double betrayal kept me awake most of the night. The next morning, the motel manager drove me to the station where I borrowed $50 from him, promising to mail a check once I got home. I caught the morning train, arriving just in time to reschedule my doctor's appointment for the following day. When I finally reached my house, I found 7 voicemails waiting. 6 were from concerned friends, all with the same message. They'd heard I had a senior moment at the train station and wandered off confused. They were calling to see if I needed help with living arrangements. The 7th was from a memory care facility, saying Jessica had requested information on their services. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Tyler hadn't just stolen my luggage and abandoned me at a train station. He had systematically damaged my reputation and my relationship with my daughter, all while positioning himself as the concerned son-in-law dealing with a deteriorating elderly relative. I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the home where I had raised Jessica, where we had mourned Elaine together, where I had taught her about honesty and integrity. Now, those same values would guide my response to this betrayal. For a full week, I processed what had happened, cycling through hurt, anger, disbelief, and finally, resolve. I tried calling Jessica multiple times, but my number had been blocked. I sent emails that went unanswered. I even drove by their house once, only to see Tyler's car in the driveway and the curtains immediately close when my car appeared. Then on Tuesday morning, I received an unexpected call from Robert Andrews, my banker of 25 years. Arden, I wanted to give you a heads up. Someone was making inquiries about the mortgage on your daughter's property in Oakwood Hills. This caught my attention immediately. What kind of inquiries? Ownership details, payment history, remaining balance. Standard stuff. But given your connection to the property, I thought you should know. Do you know who was asking? Robert hesitated. I probably shouldn't say, but considering our history, it was a representative from Riverside Credit, one of those high-interest lenders. Not the kind of company people do business with unless they're in trouble. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. What can you tell me about my daughter's mortgage? Well, you're not on the loan, so I shouldn't share details, but Robert paused again. The property was refinanced 3 months ago with a significantly higher interest rate than their original mortgage. They've already missed one payment, 3 months ago. But they've only owned the house for 9 months. Why would they refinance so soon? I can't speculate, Arden, but I can tell you we've declined multiple loan applications from your son-in-law over the past 6 months. His debt-to-income ratio, island, concerning. After thanking Robert, I hung up and sat in silence, processing this new information. Tyler's financial situation appeared far worse than I had imagined. This wasn't just about his rudeness or even his abandoning me at the train station. Jessica's financial security was at risk. I called James Wilson, a private investigator who had occasionally done background checks for my construction company. I explained the situation and asked him to look into Tyler's finances and recent activities, emphasizing that everything needed to be legal and above board. 3 days later, James called with his findings. Tyler had lost his real estate job 4 months ago, apparently due to ethical violations involving client funds. He had been pretending to go to work each day, while actually spending time at casinos or applying for loans. He had accumulated gambling debts exceeding $100,000, with markers at 3 different casinos. Most alarmingly, there was evidence he had forged Jessica's signature on at least 2 loan applications. "There's one more thing, Arden," James said before hanging up. "He's been selling off your daughter's jewelry. 3 pieces pawned in the last month alone. The jewelry would include the pieces that had belonged to Elaine, passed down to Jessica when she turned 25. Family heirlooms, irreplaceable connections to her mother, now funding Tyler's gambling addiction." I faced a critical decision: how to respond to these betrayals. My first instinct was pure revenge, to expose Tyler completely and watch him lose everything. But that approach would hurt Jessica too, humiliating her publicly and potentially damaging her career as a teacher. I needed a strategy that would protect Jessica while holding Tyler accountable. I called a meeting with my financial advisor, Michael, and my attorney, Sarah. "I want to anonymously purchase my daughter's mortgage through an LLC, I explained after sharing the situation. "I don't want either of them to know I'm their lender." Michael and Sarah exchanged glances. "We can do that," Sarah said. "But what's your end goal here?" "Protection first. I want to ensure Jessica doesn't lose her home because of Tyler's irresponsibility. But I also want leverage when the time comes to reveal the truth." We spent the next 2 hours developing a comprehensive plan. I would establish an irrevocable trust for Jessica that Tyler couldn't access, even if he discovered its existence. The trust would include funds for housing, education, and health care, but would be structured to protect the assets from any claims by Tyler. Sarah would create an LLC to purchase the mortgage from the current lender, giving me control over the terms and payments without revealing my identity. Michael would prepare detailed documentation of Tyler's financial deceptions, creating a portfolio of evidence Jessica couldn't dismiss. By the end of the week, everything was in place. I called my banker about Tyler's mortgage, confirming the purchase through my newly established LLC. The final piece was arranging a meeting where I could present the truth to Jessica in a way she couldn't ignore or dismiss as confusion on my part. I reached out to Susan, Jessica's longtime friend who had mentioned the fabricated surprise weekend on Jessica's birthday. Susan had always seen through Tyler's charm, and I suspected she might be willing to help. I was right. "Jessica's miserable, Arden," Susan confided during our phone call. "She won't admit it, but I can tell. She barely eats, she's lost weight, and she flinches whenever her phone rings. I've been worried about her for months." Susan agreed to host a small dinner party and invite Jessica and Tyler, along with a few other friends. It would provide a neutral setting where Jessica would feel safe, but where Tyler couldn't easily control the narrative. As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For weeks, I had been reacting to Tyler's manipulations. Now, I was taking control back, not for revenge, but for protection and truth. I thought of what Elaine would advise in this situation. She always said that integrity doesn't need to shout to be heard. The truth has a power all its own. I looked at the photo of Elaine on my desk, her kind eyes seeming to approve of my plan. "Don't worry," I whispered to her image. "I'll take care of our girl." Susan's dinner party was set for Saturday evening at 7. I arrived 30 minutes early to help her prepare and to ensure she understood what might unfold. "I don't want to ruin your dinner, Susan," I explained as we arranged cheese and crackers on a serving plate. "But things might get uncomfortable." Susan squeezed my arm. "Arden, I've watched Tyler manipulate Jessica for 3 years. If anyone deserves uncomfortable, it's him." The doorbell rang at precisely 7 o'clock. Susan winked at me before going to answer it. I remained in the kitchen, out of sight, listening. "Jessica, Tyler, come in, come in," Susan's voice was warmly welcoming. Everyone else is already here. Everyone? Tyler's voice carried a note of suspicion. You said it was just a small get-together. Just a few close friends, Susan assured him. Come on through to the living room. I heard their footsteps. Then Jessica's shocked gasp as she entered the living room and saw me standing there. Tyler's reaction was more controlled, his face hardening momentarily before his practiced smile slid back into place. Dad, what are you doing here? Jessica's voice was uncertain, her eyes darting between me and Tyler. Susan invited me for dinner, I said simply. It's good to see you, Jessica. Tyler immediately placed his hand on Jessica's arm. We should go. We have that thing tomorrow morning, remember? Susan stepped forward. You just got here. I've made pot roast, your favorite, Jessica. And Tyler, Mark brought that bourbon you liked last time. Tyler hesitated, clearly calculating the social cost of an abrupt departure versus the risk of staying. Jessica looked confused, torn between her husband's obvious desire to leave and the awkwardness of rushing out of her friend's home. We can stay for a little while, Jessica finally said, removing her coat. Tyler's jaw tightened, but he nodded in agreement. The first hour passed in careful conversation about neutral topics. Susan's new job, the unseasonably warm weather, an upcoming community festival. I participated minimally, watching Jessica grow increasingly relaxed as the evening progressed, while Tyler remained vigilant, his eyes constantly flicking to me. After dinner, as we moved to the living room for coffee, I finally addressed the elephant in the room. Jessica, I've been trying to reach you for weeks. The comfortable atmosphere instantly evaporated. Tyler leaned forward. This isn't the time or place for family discussions, Arden. Actually, Susan interjected, I invited everyone here tonight specifically so we could clear the air. Jessica deserves to know the truth. Jessica looked between us, confusion evident on her face. What truth? What's going on? I took a deep breath. About what happened at the train station. Tyler immediately jumped in. We've been through this. Your father got confused and wandered off. It happens at his age. In fact, we've been researching some excellent memory care facilities that might help. I met Jessica's eyes directly. Is that what you believe happened? Before she could answer, I continued. Because I have evidence that shows exactly what occurred that day and in the months leading up to it. From my briefcase, I removed a folder containing the documents James and Sarah had prepared. Tyler drove off with my luggage, containing my wallet and medication, after I gave him $200 for gas and my train ticket. Dad, that's not what happened, Jessica began, but her voice lacked conviction. Let me show you something, I said, sliding the first document across the coffee table. It was a bank statement showing a $200 cash deposit to Tyler's account the day he had driven me to the station. This is from your joint account, I explained. $200 deposited at 5:15 p.m., approximately 40 minutes after Tyler left me at the train station. Tyler's face flushed. That could have been from anywhere. It doesn't prove anything. Perhaps not on its own, I agreed. But it's just the beginning. One by one, I presented the evidence. Bank statements showing large cash withdrawals at casinos, the mortgage refinancing documents with their punishing interest rate, Tyler's termination letter from his real estate firm dated 4 months earlier, and loan applications with Jessica's forged signature. With each new document, Jessica's expression shifted from disbelief to horror to a profound sadness. Tyler alternated between dismissing the evidence, claiming it was fabricated, and attempting to minimize the significance of his actions. Everyone has financial struggles sometimes, he insisted as Jessica stared at the proof of his gambling losses. The real estate market has been tough. You were fired 4 months ago, Jessica whispered. You've been pretending to go to work every day. I was protecting you from unnecessary stress, Tyler countered, reaching for her hand, which she pulled away. When I presented the pawn shop receipts for Elaine's jewelry, Jessica began to cry. Mom's pearl necklace? Her sapphire ring? You said they were being cleaned. Tyler's demeanor changed then, from defensive to aggressive. What choice did I have? Your father has millions sitting in accounts doing nothing, while we struggle to make ends meet. He could have helped us at any time, but he chooses to live like a miser, and watch us suffer. It was the opening I had been waiting for. How do you know about my finances, Tyler? He faltered momentarily. Everyone knows you've been successful. Your company is well known. No one knows the extent of my wealth except my financial advisors. I've been very private about it. So either you've been investigating me, or you're guessing. Does it matter? Tyler snapped. The point is, you could help your own daughter, but choose not to. Actually, I helped Jessica in many ways, including, as of last week, owning her mortgage. The room went completely silent. Tyler stared at me, comprehension slowly dawning on his face. What did you say? Your high-interest mortgage has been purchased by Riverside Holdings, LLC. You missed your first payment, by the way. Technically, I could begin foreclosure proceedings. Tyler's face drained of color. You own our mortgage? I do. Along with documentation of all your financial deceptions, gambling debts, and fraudulent activities, Jessica looked up from the documents scattered across the table. All this time, you've been lying to me? About everything? Tyler's charm resurfaced with remarkable speed. He knelt beside Jessica's chair, taking her hands. Baby, I was trying to build a life for us. I made some mistakes, took some risks that didn't pay off, but everything I did was for our future. You abandoned my father at a train station and stole from him, Jessica said, her voice growing stronger. You sold my mother's jewelry to pay gambling debts. You forged my signature on loans. How was any of that for our future? Tyler changed tactics. Your father has manipulated this whole situation. He's turned you against me because he can't stand that you love someone else. He's using his money to control you, to control us. Actually, I interjected calmly, Jessica has complete control. The mortgage has been placed in a trust for her benefit. The trust also contains funds for her future security, education, whatever she might need. Tyler has no access to any of it. Tyler stood abruptly, his facade finally cracking. You think you're so clever, don't you? Setting this whole thing up, ambushing me here. What's your end game, old man? Trying to buy back your daughter's love? My goal is the truth, Tyler. Jessica deserves to know who she married. Jessica rose from her chair, wiping tears from her face. I want to leave now. Tyler reached for her arm. Let's go home, baby. We can talk about this privately. Jessica pulled away from him. Not with you. I'm going with my father. Tyler's expression darkened. You can't be serious. You're choosing him over me? After everything we've built together? What have we built, Tyler? A house we can't afford filled with lies I didn't know about. Tyler's charm vanished completely, replaced by cold calculation. Fine. Go with Daddy. But remember, I'm entitled to half of everything in a divorce. Half the house, half your savings, half of everything. I couldn't help but smile. Actually, the trust I established is irrevocable and was created before any divorce proceedings. It's not marital property and can't be divided. Jessica's future is secure, regardless of what happens between you two. Tyler's face contorted with rage. You won't get away with this. Either of you. I'll fight this every step of the way. Susan, who had been silently witnessing the entire exchange, finally spoke. I think it's time for you to leave, Tyler. Now. Tyler looked around the room, suddenly aware that everyone present had witnessed his exposure. Without another word, he grabbed his coat and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Jessica collapsed back into her chair, her body shaking with silent sobs. I sat beside her, not touching her, giving her space to process everything she had learned. I'm so sorry, Dad, she finally whispered. I should have known. I should have trusted you. You trusted the man you married, I said gently. That's what you're supposed to do. Can I come home with you tonight? I can't go back there, not now. Of course. Your room is exactly as you left it. The drive to my house was quiet, both of us lost in thought. As we pulled into the driveway of the modest home where Jessica had grown up, she finally spoke again. I didn't know, Dad. About your money, about Tyler's gambling, about any of it. I know, sweetheart. That's how Tyler wanted it. Jessica stared at the house, her childhood home. I've been so foolish, so blind. You've been a wife who trusted her husband. There's no shame in that. As I unlocked the front door, Jessica paused on the threshold. What happens now? Now, I said. We take one day at a time. Jessica moved into her old bedroom that night. The first few days were awkward, both of us navigating a new reality where the truth had shattered her marriage and revealed my long-kept financial secrets. She spent hours crying, alternating between grief over Tyler's betrayal and guilt over how she had treated me. I believed him when he said you were confused, she admitted one morning over coffee. I actually thought my own father was losing his mind. How could I have been so wrong about everything? Tyler was very convincing, I said. And you loved him. Love makes it hard to see clearly sometimes, but I've known you my entire life. I know your character, your honesty. I should have trusted that over someone I'd only known for 3 years. Hindsight makes everything clearer. Jessica, don't be too hard on yourself. Gradually, our relationship began to heal. We fell into comfortable routines, making breakfast together, watching old movies in the evening, working in the garden on weekends. It reminded me of the years after Elaine died, when it was just the two of us figuring out how to move forward. About 2 weeks after she moved in, Jessica discovered the truth about my business success. She was using my computer to check her email when she accidentally opened a financial statement showing my actual net worth. $12 million. She gasped when I entered the room. Dad, you're worth $12 million. I nodded, taking a seat beside her. Give or take, depending on the market. But we always lived so. Normally. Why didn't you ever tell me? Your mother and I agreed early on that we wanted to raise you with values, not things. We worried that knowing about the money might change how you saw the world, might make life too easy when the best things are earned through effort. Jessica was quiet for a moment. I think I understand, but it still feels strange, knowing my frugal coupon-clipping father is actually a millionaire. Over the following weeks, I shared stories about how I had built my business, the strategic decisions that had paid off, the investments that had grown over decades. Jessica listened with newfound respect, asking thoughtful questions about financial management and long-term planning. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings began. Tyler initially threatened a lengthy legal battle, but when confronted with evidence of his financial misconduct and the protection provided by the trust I had established, he eventually agreed to a settlement. The terms were reasonable, neither vindictive nor overly generous, reflecting my belief that revenge was less important than Jessica's fresh start. You could have destroyed him financially, Jessica observed after a meeting with her lawyer. You had the evidence and the resources to do it. What would that have accomplished? I asked. More pain, more bitterness. Sometimes the best revenge is moving forward well. Jessica decided to return to graduate school, pursuing a master's degree in educational leadership. The trust I had established easily covered her tuition and living expenses, freeing her to focus on building a new future for herself. We began taking weekend trips together, visiting places Elaine had always wanted to see. On a ferry crossing to a small coastal island, Jessica confided, I feel like I'm getting to know both you and Mom all over again. It's like I'm seeing our family through adult eyes for the first time. My medical treatment progressed successfully, the condition that had necessitated my train journey home responding well to medication and monitoring. Each clear checkup felt like another victory, another chance to be present for Jessica's rebuilding process. As months passed, Jessica developed new friendships through her graduate program and began to regain her confidence. She sold her wedding rings and used the money to repurchase some of Elaine's jewelry from the pawn shops where Tyler had sold them. Not everything could be recovered, but finding her mother's pearl necklace brought Jessica to tears of joy. It's strange, she reflected as she fastened the pearls around her neck. I thought Tyler was giving me the life I deserved, with the big house and luxury cars. But I've never felt as rich as I do right now, in this modest home with these recovered pearls and my relationship with you restored. 1 year after the confrontation at Susan's dinner party, Jessica completed her master's degree and accepted a position developing financial literacy curriculum for elementary schools. The irony wasn't lost on either of us, that her experience with Tyler had led her to a career teaching children about honest money management. If I can help one child understand the difference between wants and needs, between appearances and reality, then something good will have come from all this, she explained. Around this time, Jessica met Andrew, a science teacher who shared her passion for education. Unlike Tyler, Andrew drove a 10-year-old car, lived within his means, and valued experiences over possessions. When Jessica introduced us, I noticed how he listened more than he spoke, asked questions about our family photos, and helped clear the dinner dishes without being asked. As Jessica's life moved forward, I reflected on the lessons of the past few years. Money had never been the true measure of wealth in my life. The real treasures were integrity, family bonds, and the peace that comes from living authentically. Tyler, for all his charm and material aspirations, had missed this fundamental truth. One evening, as Jessica and I sat on the porch watching fireflies, she asked, "Do you regret not telling me about your finances earlier?" Maybe if I had known, I wouldn't have been impressed by Tyler's false displays of wealth. I considered her question carefully. "I don't regret the values your mother and I taught you, but perhaps I should have trusted you with the full truth as an adult." Finding the balance between protection and honesty is never simple, especially with the people we love most. Jessica nodded, understanding the complexity of parental love and the imperfect choices we all make. "The money doesn't matter, Dad," she said finally. "What matters is that you were willing to be left at a train station with nothing rather than compromise who you are. And when it really counted, you used your resources not for revenge, but for protection and truth. That's the real wealth you've given me." As I look back now, on that day at the train station, I see it as a turning point rather than a tragedy. Tyler's betrayal, painful as it was, ultimately restored my relationship with Jessica and allowed her to see the truth before spending a lifetime with someone who would have continued to deceive her. The greatest wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or possessions. It's found in relationships built on honesty, in the courage to face difficult truths, and in the freedom that comes from living according to your values rather than others' expectations. If you've stayed with me through this story, I hope you'll take a moment to reflect on your own definition of wealth. Is it the balance in your accounts, the car in your garage, the address on your mailbox, or is it something deeper and more lasting? Leave a comment sharing what true wealth means to you. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that authentic living is the greatest fortune we can possess. Thank you for listening. And remember, the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars and cents.